Hello friends, this video on structural organization of animals part 31 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exams. So now that we have discussed the digestive system, let us talk about the circulatory system of cockroach. So now we know how the digestion of food materials take place inside a cockroach. What about blood circulation? As I mentioned in one of the previous slides, that for all the members of arthropoda, the circulatory system is open type. That means blood is not confined to tube-like structures called vessels. So here blood is scattered throughout the body. So how that circulation happens, how each and every part of the body gets blood. So it has open circulatory system, poorly developed blood vessels. So as I said, the blood vessels are not distinct and appropriate. Organs located in hemocoele. So what is hemocoele? The word hemo comes from blood and the word cele comes from coelom, which also means body cavity. So this means that blood is present in the body cavity. In all the empty spaces inside our body, blood is present. So that is why it is known as hemocoele. Now what constitutes the circulatory system? So what are the different parts which together form the circulatory system? A tubular heart, anterior aorta, and sinuses. So these are the three major parts which together form the circulatory system in cockroach. Now when I talk about a tubular heart, heart is always the pumping organ which will pump blood to different parts of the body. So here also heart is a pumping organ. Anterior aorta, it is a blood vessel. As I said, blood, it is not that blood vessels are completely absent, but they are not very well developed. As a result, blood is present in the body cavity. Sinuses are again ill-defined blood spaces. So there are some spaces inside the body where blood is present. So we cannot call them a blood vessel. We just cannot, we also need to consider them into circulatory system. So we have given a name sinus. So sinus are nothing but those ill-defined blood spaces. So where you have blood, where the spaces inside the body where you see blood is present. So those spaces are sinuses. So let us quickly talk about each of them. First, let us talk about heart. Heart is an elongated muscular tube. So heart is basically an elongated muscular tube. So here you can see this tube-like structure which you see, this is nothing but the heart, and that is why we say that it has a tubular heart. It is located along mid-dorsal line of thorax and abdomen. So this part is thorax, this part is abdomen. So mid of thorax and abdomen, in fact mid-dorsal line. So you will be able to locate the heart only from the dorsal side, not from the ventral side. It is the pumping organ, as I already said. Heart is always the pumping organ which helps to pump blood to different parts. It is differentiated into funnel-shaped chambers with pores on either sides called ostia. So here in this picture you can see this is your heart, and here you can see some funnel-shaped chambers. Now each of these funnel-shaped chambers will have pores on either sides, and these pores are known as ostia. Now we will see what is the role of ostia, why do they have these funnel-shaped chambers. We'll see all that. The next part is anterior aorta. It is located at the posterior end of heart. So posterior end of heart is closed. So if you see here, this is the posterior end of heart and it is closed. So it is not connected to any other organ here. Anterior end moves forwards as anterior aorta. If you look at the anterior end, it moves forwards as the anterior aorta. So we will have a look at that again in little more detail in the next slide when we talk about the functions. And the third part is the sinuses. So what are sinuses? Those empty spaces which are filled with blood. So hemocoel is divided into 3 sinuses by 2 partitions. So if you talk about hemocoel is nothing but the entire body cavity which is filled with blood. So that entire cavity is divided into 3 sinuses or 3 regions: pericardial sinus, perivisceral sinus, and perineural sinus. So these are the 3 sinuses which are divided by 2 partitions. So now quickly let us quickly see where are these sinuses located. Now let us try to understand this with this rough diagram. Let us suppose this is your cockroach. So from a side view. So how is the heart located? So basically your heart is somewhere like this. And this is just a rough diagram to explain you where and how things are located. Something like this. So this is your heart, right? So here you have these funnel-shaped chambers. So you have these funnel-shaped chambers with holes. So what are these holes? These holes are known as ostia. Correct. So now this is the posterior end. So at the posterior end, this is closed. The heart is closed. But at the anterior end, aorta is present, which is also known as dorsal aorta or anterior aorta, whatever you call it. So this is how the this is how the cockroach circulatory system looks like if you look at it sideways. Now the 3 sinuses which we are talking about are the 3 part of the body cavity. So the first part is pericardial sinus. So this portion is known as pericardial sinus. So pericardial sinus is that part of the hemocoel which contains the heart. And that is why it is known as pericardial. The word cardial is related to heart. So that is your pericardial sinus. So this portion consists of the heart. So basically it contains this. Okay. Then the next is perivisceral sinus. So where is the perivisceral sinus? It is located below the heart. So somewhere here. So here you have some partition, and then below that you have the perivisceral sinus. So as I said, these sinuses are separated from each other by partitions. So what separates pericardial sinus from perivisceral sinus? So pericardial and perivisceral sinus are separated from each other by dorsal diaphragm. So basically you can say that this red line is nothing but the dorsal diaphragm. So what do the perivisceral sinus consist of? It contains the gut, that is the digestive tract. So you have the heart, and then below that you have the digestive tract, and below that you have the ventral nerve cord. So these are the 3 important things which you have running throughout the body of the cockroach. So that part of the sinus which contains heart is pericardial sinus. The next part of the cavity which contains the digestive tract, that is the perivisceral sinus. And the bottommost part, let us suppose this is the bottommost part. So this bottommost part is known as perineural sinus. So perineural sinus is the one which contains the nerve cord. So how is the perivisceral and perineural sinus separated from each other? They are separated by ventral diaphragm. So now you understood why I considered the sideways picture. That's because if you look at it from sideways, towards the dorsal side is present the pericardial sinus, then next is perivisceral, and then again towards the ventral side is present the perineural sinus. So these are the 3 parts of the hemocoel which consists of blood. Correct? Okay, so now again one more thing which you see, so ostia you understood, these are the pores which are present here. Now again here you can see some muscular structures, and these muscular structures are nothing but alveolar muscles. So what do? The contraction and expansion of these muscles help the blood to move from one region to another region. So we will look at that in the next slide. So for now you understood what are the three parts of the circulatory system in cockroach. First is heart, which is a tube-like structure and is the pumping organ. Next is the aorta or the dorsal aorta, whatever you call it, which is present at the anterior end of the heart. And the third one is sinuses, which are the blood-filled spaces or body cavities. So they are again divided into three types: pericardial, perivisceral, and perineural. So now we are going to talk about the process of circulation. So now let us look at the process of circulation. So how blood flows from one region to another region. So now heart being the pumping organ, let us start from heart. Now heart pumps blood into the anterior aorta. Right? This is the heart. It pumps blood to the anterior end, that is towards the anterior aorta. From anterior aorta, the blood moves into the perineural sinus. So if you look at this picture sideways, you'll be able to see it goes into the perineural, that is the bottommost part of the cavity. From perineural sinus, it will go to the middle sinus, that is the perivisceral sinus. And from the perivisceral sinus, it will go to the pericardial sinus. And from the pericardial sinus is that sinus which contains the heart. So how the blood will get into the heart? It will get into the heart by the relaxation of alveolar muscles. Just now I spoke about alveolar muscles, right? Now due to the relaxation of the alveolar muscles, the pores are present, ostia. So through them the blood will get into the heart. Again from heart it will be pumped to the aorta. From aorta it will go to the perineural sinus. From there it will come to the perivisceral sinus. Right? So from perivisceral sinus, it will get into the pericardial sinus. Now what happens is, due to the contraction, as I said, due to the contraction and of the alveolar muscles, the pericardial septum is pulled down. So now this is how it happens. Let us suppose this is the cockroach. This is the tubular heart. And this is the aorta. This is pericardial sinus. This is perivisceral sinus, and this is perineural sinus. And these are the partitions which separate each of them from the other. So what happens? Blood flows from the heart to the aorta. From aorta, it gets into the perineural sinus. From perineural sinus, in fact, from aorta, it gets into the sinus of head and it comes into the perineural sinus. From perineural sinus, it will get into the perivisceral sinus. Now, once it is into the perivisceral sinus, now the contraction and expansion of alveolar muscles play a role. Now, once blood has entered into the perivisceral sinus, on contraction of the alveolar muscles, the pericardial septum is pulled up. So, the partition between pericardial and perivisceral septum, that will start moving up. Now, as a result, blood will start moving. Right? So the blood will get into the pericardial septum. Now once the blood gets into the pericardial sinus, then the alveolar muscles will start relaxing and again the blood will start coming into the heart. Now blood will enter into the heart and then it will again go to aorta. So these process will keep on continuing. So this is how blood circulation takes place in case of a cockroach. Now if you talk about the location of the heart is located in 13 chambers in case of a cockroach. Out of those 13 chambers, 3 chambers are located in thorax and the remaining 10 chambers in abdomen. So basically we can say that a cockroach heart is located in 13 chambers, 3 in thorax, whereas the remaining 10 chambers in abdomen. So these 3 chambers in thorax and the remaining are all in the abdomen. Right? So this was all about the circulatory system of. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.